ladies. Good morning. I am so excited to be here. This is my, I think, third year coming back. I started as a vendor. I tried to stay small and kind of hide behind my table, but there's a lot of different things that I really receive from conferences. So I'm also a mental health therapist. I'm an author. I also run the Monday Spa Club, which is a wellness club for women. So I really like to talk about just wellness and self-care for women and how it is integrated into our lives personally. You know, what works for us doesn't work for everyone else. And this is us like really kind of taking back control of how we make ourselves whole again. So,
what is identity and how is it defined?
So when I think of the word identity, I think of the woman that I wake up as every single day. You know, what does she think about? What is she planning for? What does she want? What are her desires? It goes so much deeper than, you know, Janay or the title or all the little acronyms that follow behind her names. And it's more so just about what does womanhood look like for me? You know, at this stage in my life, you know, in my 20s, it was party time. You know, and in my 30s, we got to get serious. So I'm really curious, but also, you know, a little nervous, I think, you know, about stepping into these years, these older years, because it's almost like playing a real life game of Monopoly. You know, like you pay $200, you got to go to jail, you know, and it's just a real life game of Monopoly. And to me, identity just means like, how do I identify my womanhood throughout my decades, throughout my entire life?
I gave you guys some labels, so let's talk about these labels, okay? Because we kind of all deal with this, you know, what are labels and where do they come from?
So labels, they come from limits that we place on ourselves. There are different ways that we put ourselves in a box. You know, other people sometimes even give us labels and we, you know, just accept them. You know, I hear women say all the time, even when they are congratulating each other on certain things, you know, girl, I'm trying, thank you, I'm trying. You know, and it's like, you're not trying, you're doing.
Yes.
You know, but we are so used to kind of playing small for everybody based on the titles and the labels that they've given us that, you know, we kind of play shy a little bit. And, you know, there are things in our lives that God has called us to do long time ago, you know, but we played small a little bit based on the titles and different things. And so this is really our opportunity every day, you know, to wake up and really figure out, you know, how can I bring some stillness to my day? You know, that is part of my identity too. You know, I come in peace. I don't want to come in chaos. You know, and the people that are around me too, do they respect this version of me, my identity, my womanhood, or do they constantly, you know, trample over my boundaries? You know?
How does shame define us and why do we allow it to shape us?
Shame is such a scary word, I think. You know, has anyone ever seen Inside Out? Okay. So I love all the different emotions and the feelings, and when I think of shame, I wonder like, how would that show up for somebody? You know, how would that character look like as they're, you know, playing out maybe in a movie or something? But shame is something that it's literally like a backpack full of rocks, and it's something that we carry with us all the time and we never really let go of. And, you know, sometimes different things happen in our life when we have, you know, aha moments and it's like, wow, you know, I've been carrying this stuff that a lot of times it's not even mine to carry. You know, these are generational things, generational patterns that, you know, things that I've watched my parents do, my mom do, the people that raised me. And these are all sometimes their shame. Like even growing up, there was a lot of financial issues, you know, in our house. And I remember even thinking about money and finances, you know, it was such a taboo topic. There was so much shame around it. You know, you never asked anybody about money, you know, you never talked about how much came in, what was going out, but it was something even growing up, right? People don't even want to talk about salaries and don't even want to compare, you know, different things. And these are all ways that we let the shame kind of into our lives a little bit and we make friends with it, but we shouldn't. We really shouldn't. And we should have people, strong people, friends, family, whoever, that's gonna really check us and really gonna be like, what you believe that for? You know, why do you believe that? You know, if a friend was talking to you and they were saying these same things to you that you say to yourself, you would be like, why do you talk to yourself? Like, why would you say that? You know, you wouldn't say that to your friend, but these are the things that we're saying to ourselves every single day that are just creating more and more shame. Ourselves grace also, we have to really start small. You know, like I think that's a buzzword right now, you know, grace, but really redefine like what that means to you. You know, and when I say start small, like even just getting your kids out the door on the bus on time, you know, is a big deal, you know, because I don't know about y'all, but in my household around 6:30, 7 a.m., it's chaos. You know, it looks like Home Alone in the morning. It's a lot going on, but even when, you know, I get her out the door and she's on and, you know, she's, you know, happy and healthy, I'm like, wow. You know, another day down. Good job.
Yes.
Good job. You know, and so start small. When you're giving yourself grace, it doesn't have to be a whole big, oh, I just ran a marathon. You know, I did this, I did that. You know, hey, I got to work on time today. Right? Like really start small. One of my words that I wrote down was vulnerability, because that's always been a big theme for me in my life, you know, growing up in just different chaotic energies, environments. You know, we always kind of feel like we can't tell people certain things, we can't lean on them, we can't delegate, you know, we do have to do everything by ourselves. And vulnerability for me is something that I challenge myself to do every day. You know, how can I be vulnerable with, you know, someone in my family, but also just maybe a stranger? You know, this is a muscle that we have to start working out every day. You know, when we start to make these changes in our life, it's gonna be messy. It's gonna, you know, not feel good. Even when we call ourselves advocating for ourselves and standing up to people, you know, sometimes your voice cracks a little bit, you know, and your heart's beating and, you know, if you're like me, it's sweating, you know, you know, but again, this is a muscle that we are working out. And in order for us to get stronger, it's something that we have to do every day and really be intentional and make it a part of our life. And just a quick story, but recently, so I had won a small award in my community where I live, and there was like a small award banquet, and the banquet was this past February, but we had been alerted that, you know, I had won this award back in like December. And I didn't tell anybody about it. I didn't say anything until maybe about a week or two before the award banquet. And so when we went there, you know, they were announcing it like, hey, we opened up, you know, submissions for this award in December. You know, it's been a couple of months. We've got an amazing, you know, response from it. And my whole family turned to me and they're kind of like, you know, you knew about this months ago. Why didn't you say anything to us? You know, like, why did we just find out about this last week? And I said, in my vulnerability, you know, I said, I wasn't in a space to celebrate myself. You know, I was going through a lot of, you know, working through depression, like we all do, that high functioning depression. And, you know, yeah, I want to see, that's nice, but, you know, I can't get out of bed today. You know, I'm curled up like a burrito, you know, in my house, in the bed. And when I finally got to a place to celebrate myself, you know, I welcomed you guys in, I told you, and I'm so thankful that you're here now to celebrate me, but, you know, I just wasn't in a space to do it myself at that moment, you know, and I visibly saw my family's like anxiety went from here to like them dropping their shoulders and like listening, and okay, we get it, you know. So part of that vulnerability is letting people in a little bit and just telling them like, hey, like I couldn't do it for me, but I'm so glad that, you know, you can support me. That's also part of the delegating. You know, you tell people how you want them to treat you, right? And let that be the boundary.
We have to really truly love ourselves in this moment. We're going to love ourselves right now with our flaws and all. That's okay. We're not perfect. But we're walking in who we are, walking in purpose, authentically. Give yourself the grace, the freedom to do so. So with that being said, yes.
Just to close it out, you know, when we talk about, of course, taking care of ourselves, loving ourselves, this is the theme today. You know, and this sounds really, really simple, and I think people say it all the time, but also just making sure that our physical bodies are up to par and where they need to be, you know, because we are doing really, really hard work. Just like Cassandra said, we're different. We are different, and sometimes it's even simple as, I'm trying to save the world, but did I drink water today? Like so many of us get so used to feeling how we feel every single day. Like we're walking around with headaches like it's normal, stomach aches like it's normal, shoulders all up stressed all the time. I tell people when I used to work for diapers a long time ago, worst job ever. I used to be in the state van driving, and I would literally be gripping the wheel, just driving until my knuckles were white, and I had to like literally release my body to even be able to figure out me and who I was and what my identity looked like, and really kind of letting go some of those negative emotions. So first at a very basic level, get back to your body. Start with you. Are we drinking water? Am I up on my vitamins? Am I breathing correctly? All those little things that are going to help us really kind of oxygenate our brains and our bodies better to make better decisions for ourselves and not be so short and maybe irritable with the people who love us. Please quickly.
I can't have that. Look at it. I'm a big old. I just want to just say something. I believe that we need to treat them like somebody living. And this young lady right here sitting next to you, she has a spa. And it was this bad day. I don't know if she remembers me. It was a day I had something called coughing neuropathy, and I coughed like you would not believe. I know everybody probably thought I had COVID or whatever, but it was her. She has a Monday spa camp. She does, and she made me feel so comfortable. I mean, you don't understand. That day was so miserable for me because I was coughing. I know everybody was like, "This girl got cold." I was like, "I promise you, I don't." I almost didn't go because I knew I had these coughing spurs, and my girlfriend is a nurse. She's like, "You're gonna be fine." I felt so bad, but Janay, am I saying? She made me feel so comfortable. It was such a beautiful experience. I didn't even like spas until her. She was so kind to me. She was so nice. So I just want to just tell people, you gotta give people their flowers while they're living. So I thank you because you were so kind to me and loving. And I'm coming back.
Yeah, I wanted to also add to, there's a book that I really love called The Let Them Theory. Okay. Yeah. I got you. Yeah. But there's a really good book called The Let Them Theory. And basically, when people say things about us, when they have issues with us, when they come at us with certain things, we have to get to a point where we let them. And that's not saying that we accept it. Yep. There you go. Yeah, and the other side of that is let me control my emotions. Let me control the mood that they're going to or not going to put me in for the day. But she's, Dr. Robbins, she said, people are going through their own things anyway, and we cannot take on that stuff. It's literally energy that we are taking on, and we're too expensive to hold it,